let me get him Malik Willis so that I can groom him. Because I know if you give a ball of clay to the right potter, you're going to make a masterpiece.
Gentlemen, it's time to talk about QB1. Malik Willis, Liberty, 6'005", 219 pounds. He didn't run, but we don't need to see him run, right? Like, we know. And it's been reported that at Auburn he had ran an electronic 4.3 something at one point or another. So this is an electric athlete, but also somebody who feels like they're waiting for the right environment to draw out a lot of the nuance that he's capable of at the quarterback position. And in a crowded field of quarterbacks in which you could ask 10 different guys in the draft space and get 4 different answers, probably twice each, for who QB1 is, our consensus landed upon Malik Willis. So when we think about Malik, the conditions that he played at, both at Auburn and then when he transferred to Liberty, his skill set, what the state of NFL quarterbacking is now, what's the most prominent thought that comes to you guys' head?
Just playmaker. You know, in today's NFL, when you're drafting a quarterback in the first round, you want someone that can elevate the skill players around you. And while Malik isn't my QB1, I think Kenny Pickett is, but for me, I can easily see why he would be someone's QB1, because at the end of the day, no one in this class has his arm strength, has his athleticism, has his kind of raw playmaking skills that really can scare a defense, will keep a defensive coordinator up all night. And you see the young guys coming into the league with that having immediate success. What do they all have in common? They're athletic, they have huge arms, and they can stretch the field, right? And so it's those guys like a Patrick Mahomes, like a Josh Allen, like a Justin Herbert, like a Lamar Jackson, who, all 4 of them are all kind of raw coming out, but what has allowed them to learn by doing and really, gain experience through playing is relying on their athleticism to kind of get them out of trouble and get them out of their mistakes, because they're just superior athletes. And so with Malik, is it going to be pretty year one? Probably not. There's some things he has to work on from an accuracy standpoint, from a touch standpoint, from an overall decision-making standpoint. But when you look at as a 3-year projection of what he can be, that's when you get
why
really
you
excited.
draft him.
That's why you get really excited. And so I think for a team that has a plan for Malik, saying, hey, we're willing to take our lumps with him, tailor our offense around his skill set, kind of like what the Eagles did with Jalen Hurts this past year, and then we can work and groom him to eventually be, like how Josh Allen is, where now he's the catalyst of the offense, not just a part of the offense.
I agree. And when you look at Malik Willis, he's a ball of clay. He's extremely coachable, headsy, smart young man. He's one of those guys that an offensive coordinator wants to get in. Hey, we got an established starter that we know is not our long-term guy. Let me get him Malik Willis so that I can groom him. Because I know if you give a ball of clay to the right potter, you're going to make a masterpiece, right? So that's kind of what I look at with him. He has the arm talent. You know that he can make those second reaction windows. And we saw at the Senior Bowl, not just during the game, but even at the practice, day 2, torrential downpour. Most of the guys struggled, right? He's out there like, I don't care. It doesn't really matter to me. He's throwing lasers. He wasn't really able to use his legs, which is his A trait. He had to use his from the neck up and his arm talent. He was accurate after day 1. He put the ball in places, and you could just hear the thud when guys didn't want to let it hit their hands. And even in the game, when he did scramble for 55 yards, his eyes were downfield. It was a scramble drill. He's still looking for somebody to throw to. It just was no one was open.
Suddenly, DP's got me interested in pottery with the
Dude,
type.
Go back and check the tape. Joe's eyes got as wide as saucers. He was
man, you get the right ball of clay to the right potter, you got a masterpiece. I like where we're heading here. We talk about quarterbacks that are difference makers and quarterbacks that you can win with if the remainder of team's good enough, right? Trucks and trailers. Yes. Malik Willis has the opportunity to be a truck in the NFL that can really be the reason why a team wins football games, because he doesn't have any physical limitations. The entire playbook is open for Malik, and with physical skills there is obviously he's got to grow and acclimate and develop as a progression style player and kink out, work out some of the kinks with the accuracy and that type of stuff. But he gives you a chance to have a dude at the position. And what gives me a lot of hope to think that he can become that is the intangibles, right? The leadership, the personality, the football character, how much he loves the game, how hard he works. We've had really great insight into his process, courtesy of his coaches, and getting a chance to be here around him at the Senior Bowl and the Combine. You know that he's got that makeup of a guy that can really take control of an NFL offense and really take it to places where it's one of the more dynamic units in the league.
Yeah, no, I agree. And then for me, Malik Willis, I go back to the film, right? Because I think everybody talks about the completion percentage and him throwing a lot of interceptions, him not showing well in the biggest game against Ole Miss. But you watch the film and it tells a story, right? How many free blitzes did Malik Willis have to take on? And he got hit every single time. There were no free blitzer that came that he, that
came up empty.
Yeah, they came up empty. They got all of them. And I appreciated the fact that he continued to get up and fight. He battled that entire game. He could have easily said, you know what, I'm a top quarterback pick. I'm out of here. Like, we this is a mismatch. I'm hurt. I pulled the hamstring or something. But he continued to battle, and that's when we talk about Joe, when you talk about the intangibles, and you combine that with the traits. And I'm like, you know what? If I'm an offensive coordinator, I say, give me that. Like, at this point, just give it to me, and I'll figure it out, because that's what you're supposed to do as a coach. So I was really impressed with his film, because I think every throw it had a story, right? Every incompletion had a story that matched up to, well, you know what? That may not have been exactly Malik Willis's fault. And so that's why I left there coming back, and we talked about it in our meetings. I was, I had a head scratch. I'm like, man, I got to rethink this this quarterback ranking, because I was thoroughly impressed with Malik Willis as a quarterback, not only a runner.
Yeah, it's always the challenge of trying to draw, and this is for every player at every position. Draw and extrapolate what translates, what doesn't, when you know full well that the environment that those players are in is not at all going to be reflective of the environment that they play in at the NFL level.
Right.
And I even think about from a structural standpoint at Liberty too. I mean, that coaching staff did a nice job in playing with a lot of tempo and getting up to the line of scrimmage. And it felt like for Malik, it was once they got that drive starter play and they could go a little quicker, and the defense had to dumb it down, and then that made it easier for the offensive players to kind of know and understand what to expect, to make sure everybody's on the same page. If you're adjusting your routes based on leverage, or if there's site adjustments, they have to water down their blitzes so your offensive line's not getting overtaken with 18 free runners and a half against Ole Miss. Then that's when that offense always felt like it really hummed. And that, for me, for Malik, was encouraging to think about, okay, now if I can get him into an infrastructure in which the rest of what he's working with around him has that stability that you only really saw at Liberty when they were able to consistently play fast, that's when I thought we always saw the best version of Malik Willis. Malik Willis, TDN, QB1, 83.76. Be interesting to see how long this guy has to wait when it comes time to the end of the month.